In terms of costumes, Mark Grayson has had it easier than most superheroes could ever hope to because he had the help of a professional tailor that built his iconic outfit for free because of super nepotism. Fellas like Spider-Man, Daredevil, Kick-Ass, and Martha Kent are stabbing their thumbs with sewing needles making costumes at home, but Marky Mark just needs to call up a professional to do the whole thing. I think any superhero cosplayer wishes they had a guy like Art Rosenbaum as a family friend. Instead, Jacob here only has me. Poor bastard. So my longtime best pal, lazy stoner Jacob, and his angry British girlfriend Molly both surprised me by coming to town for my birthday. They stayed for a convention, helped me finish up my Deadpool suit, which isn't topical right now, so I'll make that video later, and then I had one of my trademarked ideas that I would subject everyone else to. While shopping for fabric to make a Deadpool mask, I came across this stretchy yellow material that's rubbery on one side and matte on the other. Jacob jokingly said we could use it to make an Invincible costume, and then I ruined his life for it by deciding we should do it right before their flight home only a few days away. So with a ticking clock, no real plan, and a lot of trial and error, this is how we made an Invincible costume in just one full day. No one goes on vacation to my house. They get here and then it becomes a project because I can't control myself and I'm horribly dependent on my friends to make all the stupid harebrained schemes I come up with at the last minute. So we bought the yellow fabric and then found a nice shiny blue to go with it. And then I ordered this black bodysuit from Amazon to use as a base since we could just attach the rest of this stuff on top of it. If you really think about it, all clothes are just floppy tubes shaped like various body parts. Stunning observation, I know. But this also applies to gloves. You can make gloves by just tracing the shape of your hand onto two pieces of fabric, laying them on top of each other, loading a revolver with one bullet, spinning it, and placing it to your temple. The intricacies of gloves come from the fact that you have to sew pieces together in such a narrow space to fit fingers. Sleeves are easy. Your red Russian crushing grabbers are not. We kept having issues with sewing the panels together in some corners between the fingers, so this first attempt at gloves had a lot of excess fabric on the inside that made them too tight, and the stitches kept popping. I ended up having to remake the gloves entirely a second time so they didn't cut the circulation off his little digits. If you thought that looked hard, just wait until you see the living nightmare that is the cowl. Ah yes, the exposed ears, hair, and chin mask, a staple of 90s and 2000s superhero costume design. It looks great on guys like Cyclops, Nightwing, 90s Hawkeye, and Kid Flash. A lot of superheroes have played around with this look on occasion, and it's a pretty solid design despite not concealing your identity for shit and being weird and pointless. Why's the hair gotta be out? What purpose does that serve? So the bad guys know he uses a good conditioner? I'm sure at some point in 40 years we'll argue about whether or not this is an important and practical element of Invincible's costume design in the same way that we can't get over Superman's trunks. As stylish as this headwear is, it's a bitch and a half to replicate in real life, and I've often seen other Invincible cosplays struggle to pull it off too. Naively, we thought to ourselves that it would be just as simple as replicating a typical spandex mask and cutting holes in it and slicing the top off. In theory, that's all you gotta do. In practice, this is like trying to make a t-shirt for your head. We used the shape and size of the second skin spandex masks as a pattern to create a little Pac-Man ghost shape on two sheets, so I could sew them together with shiny sides in and then flip it inside out.
A quick prayer to the sewing gods that I don't fuck this up horribly.
First attempt was interesting because we learned that this material stretches like spandex, but it sure doesn't breathe like spandex. Jacob was nearly suffocating in this scary leather head condom. Then we cut holes in it that were slightly too big, and he turned into a horrible nightmare gimp creature and terrorized everyone in the house.
You scared the dog.
Jacob, no. No, stop, please. No, please.
Why is his eyes like that?
I don't love you anymore.
On to take two. Yes, I'm aware I was getting kind of fat when this video was filmed 5 months ago. I've been working out, I've lost some pounds. No one asked you, but you have no social awareness and think being on the internet makes you entitled to anonymously run your mouth about other people's appearances. But I'll just get it out of the way for you, guy who will never know the touch of a woman. Anyway, take two went better with sewing the shape of the head, but then Jacob discovered the joys of recreational marijuana and alcohol before filming this, and his brain cells reduced by the good times. This resulted in him making a fatal error.
Wait, did you cut all the way through the back?
Our friendship was tested by this, but ultimately, he forgave me for getting so angry I stabbed him a little bit with a sewing needle to punish his foolishness.
I can always start again. make another kid.
I also did another set of gloves. Everything was hard to measure, everything was a pain. Jacob and Molly had a flight the next morning, so we were cutting it close, and this was one of those work on it for 12 hours until 3 a.m. cosplays.
We're sewing his back up.
There's too much fucking shit on me.
The 10 kills. We did way too much.
I don't even want to be around anymore.
I had a friend who's a professional hairstylist come over to wrangle Jacob's incredibly long hair into a more Mark Grayson appropriate shape since he was growing it out for a Casey Jones cosplay at a convention earlier that week. He also met Anakin Skywalker, so that was cool. On our third attempt at a mask, we finally got it close enough to work with. It's not perfect, but it's at least usable. The Invincible goggles look came from a pair of reflective aviator sunglasses that we popped the lenses out of. You glue them onto the top edge of the mouth opening where your eyebrows would go, and then cut up under there in a way that wouldn't show from the outside. The boots were fun. Shout out to Spidey cosplayer Jake Vaughn for putting instructions for this up on his Instagram story so we could make these. In case my instructions are stupid, you could go check that out and also just, follow him. He does pretty good work. We traced the shape of a morph suit leg to make the shape of the long sock. Then we cut out the bottom of it while Jacob wore a generic slip-on shoe that we got at Walmart. You gotta cut the bottom off the shoe around the sole, then use E6000 glue or shoe goo to seal that edge. Then hold it down with rubber bands and leave it for a good long while. Once the glue is good to go, mask off the edge of the shoe and then hit that sole with some Plasti-Dip spray to really seal the fabric down and rubberize the bottom. Bada boom! Good old big blue boots. I don't know how you'd get to that black square inside the knees look from the earlier issues, but even Mr. Rosenbaum himself decided that it wasn't a good idea and nixed that design element in later incarnations. To make the knee pads stand out from the rest of the boot, I wrapped some of our blue material around craft foam and glued down the edges, then attached an elastic strap around it to wrap around the knee and hold in place. For the more complicated parts of adding the stupid lowercase letter I shape to his upper body, Jacob had the idea to use plastic wrap to make a pattern and cut the sizes right on the blue and yellow material. So we wrapped it around him, sketched out the shape, and then cut it out of the plastic, then transferred that shape to the cloth.
No one will be able to
What the fuck?
Now, I do own a mannequin, as you can see in the background of this footage, finally. But not a tiny little scrawny twigman little guy one shaped like this Peter Parker-y motherfucker, so we'll need to improvise. And by improvise, I mean we'll sew it directly onto his body instead of mine for once. As previous cosplay videos have revealed, I have my stupid kick-ass pain tolerance levels and can put dozens of pins through my arm without noticing. But Jacob didn't unlock that power in the skill tree, so any sewing needle that caressed his delicate flesh caused him to let out a big ol', "We cosplayers must suffer for our art. Our body's a canvas, the meat on our bones a malleable material that we can sculpt, carve, and even puncture for the process." Bet he wishes he would. But alas, he's just Ken. This part with laying on 2 panels of blue and 3 panels of yellow got to be a real hassle. We needed all hands on deck, so it was 3, sometimes 4 different people all sewing it onto him at once. We all learned different threading techniques, so consistency wasn't really an option for the threads, but the clock was ticking and we needed to get it done. Sure, it was messy on the lines, but hey, the damn thing was holding together. Mostly. It stuck together long enough for us to get a little photo shoot upstairs and downstairs in the dead of night when everyone was no longer having fun and just wanted the suffering to finally end. All things considered, it's not a bad result for something that we put together in such a hurry. Maybe we'll salvage what we finished here and do a version 2.0 at some point with a more solid mask and cleaner stitching. I'd make the dot between the eye and the yellow, I would make that little blue space wider because it's like a little tight. The yellow dot on the eye being a single piece with the mask is one of those comic artists don't know how costumes work in real life things, like when you see Spider-Man's mask lenses wrinkled when he takes it off, even though they're made of glass. There's no way in hell that'd work in real life because the fabric wouldn't sit still and lay flat on the flap like that unless he had like a row of magnets or Velcro holding it down. Ours is just a mask that stops at the neck. I sent Jacob home with all the fabrics that we used for this so he could revisit the old ironically named Nepo Baby superhero that won our hearts by living in a world with consequences. The suit may have started to fall apart after Jacob took it home, and we may have accidentally sewn parts of it to a pillow and had to cut the pillow out, And we may have stabbed Jacob several times, and we may have just barely made it to the airport on time the next morning while sleep-deprived and cranky, and I may have stressed out all the people closest to me with one of my harebrained schemes and a ridiculously unreasonable last-minute project idea that I wanted to put together just so I could have a topical upload at the time of Invincible Season 2 releasing, but you know what? It was totally worth it! Robert Kirkman, if you see this video, can you give us free copies of the compendium as a reward for going through this horrible, horrible train wreck nightmare? I always get mad at YouTube for not putting my videos in the subscription box because people will comment, "Finally, Xavier uploads again after all these years," not knowing 3 other videos came out within the last month already. So maybe that stupid bell icon thing will help you remember I exist. If you want other ways to support the channel, you can always go hit up that Patreon for early videos and exclusive stuff because it's just $1. I'm not kidding, it's only $1. Isn't that cool? If everyone who watched this video donated $1 a month, I'd be able to afford a house for myself, so that would be really cool. You can also check out our merch on TeePublic, or just buy some of my random stuff on eBay. I have a pretty substantial collection of old toys that are still in the box in perfect condition, so go take a look in case you find something you like. And lastly, since this is a YouTube video and you probably play Fortnite, drop my creator code XavierGM next time you buy a silly dance or a cool character skin. Really helps me out. See you next time!